Hello, I'm Ginger Howe. I'm the Secondary Language Arts Coordinator for Moore Public Schools, and I was a Standards Committee writer with the state of Oklahoma. And today I'm going to talk to you about Standard 3, Critical Reading and Writing. So the way the standards are set up, there is a reading strand and a writing strand, and what I have demonstrated here is actually the entire vertical alignment of Standard 3. So if you were to look at the whole thing, you would have pre-K going across all the way to 12th grade. I tend to think that this is the English teachers, the whole reason why we became English teachers, because Standard 3 contains things like literary elements and figurative language, and it's all the things that we love to experience whenever we read our favorite book, like surprise endings and the twist of irony and just the beauty of figurative language in words. So these are the things that we really like to teach. So as you are looking at the writing strand across the bottom and the reading strand across the top, you'll notice, and this is the same in all of our standards, that writing and reading are a very recursive process. So as students consume text and then they produce text, so when they read and they write, those things go back and forth between one another. So in the classroom, we would have students reading and analyzing a piece of text and then turning around and using those same concepts in their writing. And that goes back and forth, not just through Standard 3, but through all of the different standards. So as you're looking in some of these standards, you might notice that the same ideas or concepts are repeated in certain grades. For instance, point of view. Objective 2 that runs across the top here all has to do with point of view. Well, why would we teach point of view all the way from the beginning in elementary and all the way up through 12th grade? Some people might say, well, that's teaching the same thing over and over again. But what we're doing is we are raising the level of text complexity. So the stories and the articles that we have students read get more difficult. So we have text complexity that goes up even though we're still talking about the same concepts. Some examples of text complexity going up through the grades might include some books like Charlotte's Web, Where the Red Fern Grows, To Kill a Mockingbird, and then maybe Hamlet, a Shakespeare play. So that would be a perfect example of how text complexity increases through the grades. In the writing strands, there are the 3 different modes of writing: narrative, informative, and argumentative. And as students progress through the grades, there is a grade level focus for each grade. For instance, in 6th grade, the grade level focus is opinion. And then in 7th grade, it's argument, because opinion leads into the same type of writing. It becomes argument. And then in 8th grade, the grade level focus continues to be argument. Writing an argument piece tends to be pretty difficult. Students need lots of practice throughout the grades. Then when students hit 9th grade, there's actually 2 grade level focuses, and those are narrative and informative. In 10th grade, they move from informative and circle back around to argument. So over a 3 grade level span, all of those tend to be a focus together. Once students hit 11th and 12th grade, you'll notice that there's not a grade level focus noted, and that's because all 3 are to be the focus, and for students to be able to blend those. For instance, in writing an argument piece, they're of course going to use some aspects of informative writing with details and facts, and they might choose to have a little bit of narrative in their introduction to explain what their topic is about. So as students become more proficient with using the different modes of writing, they are able to blend those in the upper grades. So as you're planning your lessons, you should not only be familiar with your grade level standard, but the grade levels that are before you and after you. So one thing that you might notice is that when you're looking at these, in 11th and 12th grade, they're not very detailed. Most of the details are down here in the lower grades. So if you are a high school teacher, you definitely want to look down and see what details, what concepts were covered in those earlier grades. And if you are a younger grades teacher, you definitely want to look and say, where are my students heading. What do they need to know and be able to do by the time they finish high school, so that you're giving them a good foundation of those skills before they progress through the grades. And as you're planning your lessons, you might have the question, do you choose your title first, or do you choose the standards first? Sort of like which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, if you know your standards, then you can choose a text that contains those things. For instance, if you're teaching irony and you choose a book that doesn't contain irony, you're going to have a problem being able to show students an example of irony and why that might be meaningful in the story. So if you know your standards first, then choosing the titles becomes much easier. Once you've learned the standards and decided what texts are best suited for those standard items, another thing to consider is assessment. So when you're assessing your students and you've spent a few days or weeks discussing maybe one of the books we've mentioned, Where the Red Fern Grows or To Kill a Mockingbird, when you assess your students, you don't necessarily need to give them a test and have them regurgitate all the information over those particular books. Instead, you want to know, can your students apply those analyzing skills to a fresh read? So when you assess them, use a cold read, use some other piece of text, and have the students apply those critical thinking skills. Can they identify some literary elements or figurative language? And then can they explain and evaluate the meaning of those particular items? So I hope this video has been helpful for you to get an overview of Standard 3. If you have any questions, feel free to look on the ELA webpage of the State Department of Education's website. And I'm Ginger Howe, and I just want to thank all of the teachers of Oklahoma for all the hard work that you do every day in helping our students become literate citizens and just great people in this state. Thank you.